Very good morning to Dr. Ralph and our fellow supervisors, and Dr. NAUFAL in front of the computer maybe. So this morning we'll be presenting to you our student industrial training, not to be confused with student industrial project, will be on the coming week. Alright, so throughout our presentation we'll be talking about this, I'll be talking about introduction for our student industrial training, as well as some introduction to Le2i. Then my colleague here, Tiong, Xiang, will be presenting to you the work culture and work experience will be shared by Song Li. Kelvin Ting will be discussing some of the sustainability issues that our lab has, and we'll be making a conclusion for the first part of the presentation. And in order to make this presentation more interesting, we'll be sharing with you some of the projects, our research projects for the progress that we have done for the past 1 month. And we'll be making some recommendations along the way in order to make this internship more successful. So, the objective of student industrial training is to integrate theory with practice, of course. We'll be applying the knowledge that we have learned in the lectures for taking all the tests and exams will be applied in the real-life working environment. And secondly, to develop communication skills, management, and teamwork. We have plenty of those in this lab. To expose students to real ethical and professional work culture, and to increase the HSE awareness at the project. So throughout the presentation, we'll be proving to you that all these are achieved accordingly throughout this 1 month period. So, without further ado, let me begin with the introduction. So, I'll be talking about the general overview of Le2i and some core business and product and services. So, Le2i, let's not forget about our director, Professor Mario, and Deputy Director, Professor Nicole, Deputy Director, Professor Jin Hack, if the pronunciation is correct. So, Le2i is supervised by University of Burgundy and CNRS, which is the National Center for Scientific Research. And we have a very strong partnership with Agro Dijon and Arts at Materials Paris Tech. So, there are 4 sites of Le2i, which is what we are currently locating as Le Creusot, and we have one in Dijon, Chalon-sur-Saône, the Montserrat. Okay. And in total, there are 230 members, with consisting of 94 researchers, 24 collaborators, 90 PhDs and postdocs. And the lab is mainly distributed into 3 departments, namely computer science, electronics, and computer visions, with 8 of the teams. So we have under computer science, we have image, combinatorics, and CC, which is information system and imaging system. And in electronics, we have non-linear systems and architecture. As for computer vision, we have SINC, which stands for SINC stands for methods. SINC, wait. Non-conventional imaging systems. Okay. MOTI, that is methods and tools for image. And lastly, IMAC, that is processing, imaging, and clinical applications. Alright, just these terms are a bit high level here. So, these are basically the equipment that we have, 3D digitization. So, then these are mobile robots in which we are currently focusing on in this lab. And this is the leafy board, and we have now the 25 degrees of freedom robots. And UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, which is my area. And then color and multispectral imaging, virtual reality. Just to demonstrate, these are just to show that the lab is actually working on something that is closely related to the industry and is applicable to human life. So, So these are the proof that what the lab is currently doing is highly related and highly relevant to industry. So we have some partnership and some contribution towards Renault, the multinational vehicle company, Robotics, the energy company, and as well as EDF. And there are some of the companies that are closely related and indirectly generated the research funding for the laboratory, which are Dynamic 3D, Inetics, Fovea, and NONCAD. So our saying in what does the lab do is mainly conducting the research to contribute to the industry, which is highly relevant in today's society. And on and off, we conducted some conferences and contributing thousands of papers, and as well as some open day that is mainly targeted to share the scientific culture to the public. And that's all for me, and I'll pass it to my colleague Tiong to present to you the work culture. Thank you.
Okay, good morning to all supervisors. I'm Tiong, and my part is going to talk about work culture. Basically, there are three main topics on the work culture, which is the occupational safety and health, OSH. Secondly is the teamwork. Thirdly is the work ethics, whereby there are three subtopics under the OSH, which is the safety regulations, training, and also the standard operating procedure. So firstly is what is about OSH. It is an area concerned with protecting the safety, health, and welfare of people. When we first of all look at the word work culture, of course we relate to people and also the environments, which all interns have to adapt with when we first come to a working place for us. So the goals of OSH is to fostering a safe and healthy work environments. And secondly, to reduce the employee injury and illness related costs, the medical fare, and also the sick leave and disability benefit costs. With the OSH, it is safe for the interns, the people, the working employees, and so on. So it's very important. So there are several safety regulations in Le2i as well. So I just list down a few, and for all of us to have a mindset more on what is the safety regulations about. In Le2i, in this robotic lab, we have to keep in mind that all automatic windows and curtains should be closed every time before we leave the lab. And also we have to know the escape route to the safe place when there is emergency like the fires and also the background weapons. Okay, thirdly, we have to notify the local building security, and we have one as well, which is the upstairs. So when there is any emergency happenings. Okay. In robotic lab, we also go through some trainings, and we are getting introductions to ROS, where we run all our programs on Ubuntu system. And ROS is actually a middleware for the development of the robotics. It is a global communication platform, and is multilingual. Like the programming, we have C++ with Python, we run all these on the ROS, ROS is the robotic operating system. And it is, of course, it is tools-based, free, and open source. And besides this, we also learn debugging and visualizations. Debugging enables all of us to detect the problems in the software and also the hardware. And we learn the visualizations. In robotic lab, we have the Kinect sensors, which provides the 3D data in the form of coin clouds, which enables us to further like the 3D mapping, the localization, and so on. We also get to learn how to save, play back the data, and record the data. Actually, the saving data is for us to further developments to work on our project in future. We save our data in the back file, and next time we can play back for further analysis. Okay, next is about the standard operating procedure. SOP is a detailed explanation of how a policy is to be implemented, and basically SOP is important and compulsory or advisory to any of the organizations or company because it serves as framework for organizational policy. So with the SOP, we will basically, for interns, we will know how a policy in this Le2i, how it will run, and we will have a clear mindset for our job descriptions, employee training, and also corrective action and discipline and performance review. The second big topic is about the teamwork, where it is one of the main elements among us also. In Le2i, we also learn about teamwork in the problem solving. When we met with problems in our project, we will have the teamwork happens where we will discuss among us and will solve the problems together. And this teamwork helps us to perform our tasks faster because we divide jobs among ourselves. It's not performed individually. So by this, we can save a lot of time and also the energy. And of course, teamwork can help to develop the relationships among the colleagues because this is a platform for us to have a good bonding. So last but not least is the work ethics, where it is a value based on hard work and diligence. Honesty is one of is including in the work ethics because when we are honest to our colleagues during the communications, and this will build up the trust among the colleagues. And thirdly is the responsible value to work, where it's important for a trainee to be responsible to work, whereby he or she submit the work on time and also not to delay for the further delay. So it is very important to have the self-responsibility to work and to know about the work itself. Okay, next I'll pass the presentations to Song.
Alright, thank you Ms. Stephanie for the brief explanation regarding the work culture. So again, bonjour and good morning to all, especially to our supervisors. Again, my name is Song Hui Lee, and in this wonderful morning, I'm going to discuss with all of you regarding our work experience while doing our internship in Le2i. So basically, the student industrial training program that we are undergoing now is supposed to be our first official exposure to real work experience, and I believe that the work experience that we gain here will be extremely useful when we graduated, because at one point of time we're going to go into a new phase of life and work for real, and we have to contribute to the society with the skills and knowledge that we learn. So in the work experience, I'll be explaining about the skills gained and the knowledge that we gain while we are doing our first phase of internship here for the past 14 weeks. So the skills gained that I'm going to discuss includes the soft skills like communication skills, the time management, and the initiative taken when we meet some challenges. And in terms of the knowledge gain, I'm going to discuss more on the understanding work requirement as well as completing tasks given on time. So now without further delay, let us move to the next is the skills gain. Well, basically in today's generation, communication skill is a skill that I believe most of us must possess, because most of the time people tend to judge you and know your personality through the way how you communicate with others. And we are very fortunate that in Le2i we actually have the chance to attend some of the presentations by the PhD students, and also getting ourselves involved in the open days where the college students come and have a look on our demonstrations of the mobile robots, especially in the robotics lab. So from what we observe here is that the two-way communication is highly implemented or practiced here, which we love it a lot because I believe that two-way communication supports a better flow of ideas, especially through the Q&A session, where doubts or questions are being asked and the subject of the matter is being explained in more detail. That's when we can get a better understanding of the matter being discussed. The next is we learn about the formality in writing emails, because most of the time when during the peak times or other than the office hours, we tend to communicate with our superiors or supervisors or the people from the higher management through emails. And we have to, of course, we have to learn how to use proper language, because there's a place where we communicate asking for permission, where the permission or approvals is being granted. So proper language is important to avoid that some misunderstanding would happen. Of course, we wouldn't expect that to happen if we use proper and good language. Well, that's for the communication skills. And now let's move to the time management. Basically, we know that our first phase of internship has a duration of 14 weeks long, but then due to some reasons, we only managed to reach Le2i by week 8. So there's a quite long of time where we missed the session in Le2i. However, because we have some time management, we know it at once. So we did prepare ourselves while starting our internship in UTP by reading the related materials, so that we wouldn't come to Le2i with a blank mind. So at least we have an idea of what our project is all about. So because of the time it has been shortened due to the delay of coming here, we learn how to prioritize our work according to the level of priority. And at the same time, we tend to be multitasking, because at the same time we have to deal with our individual project, our group project, as well as doing the daily logbooks and SIT report as being required by the UTP management. And also, since we have good time management, we shouldn't put all the time just by doing work. We need some time to interact with different levels of professionals, and from there we can learn more, apart from just focusing on the project. And next is about the initiative. Well, basically, when we first reached here, we had faced some problems like communication barrier, because back into our country, Malaysia, we used to speak in English. But then when we reached here, I believe that maybe more than 50% of the people here, they tend to speak in their mother tongue language, in French. But luckily in this lab, most of the supervisors still speak in English, and we are very fortunate about that. But then we took some initiative to learn the French language a little by little on our own, since there's no preparation class for us before coming to here. So we took the initiative to learn on our own and adapt to the environment here. And lastly is about understanding task problem. Basically, our interns here, 2 from mechanical engineering and 2 from electrical and electronics engineering. What we learned back in our university is the basic programming, but then we didn't really be exposed to ROS. So at the beginning, we faced some problem in getting into ROS, because ROS there's a lot to be studied and the area is quite big. So we are struggling in the beginning, but then we took some initiative to read more than what it is by doing some readings and doing more practice based on the tutorials. Well, that's for the skills gain. And next, move on to the knowledge gain. It's about understanding the work requirement. As I mentioned earlier, each of us has an individual project, which will be further discussed in the second part of our presentation. And for the group project, 4 of us will combine our strength to do to Rossify the Wi-Fi board. And at the same time, we do our daily logbooks and SIT report. And last but not least, about completing tasks given on time. Well, the environment here is quite flexible, whereby our supervisors didn't fix a time frame for us to finish up the project. But then, of course, with our own initiative, we'll try to do it as soon as possible, so that we can focus more on the documentation and focus on the group project as well. And I think that's all for my part. Now I would like to have my friend Kelvin to continue with the discussion on sustainability and wrap up the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Song. A very good morning to all. And I'm going to try to make it brief on talking about sustainability and conclusion. Basically, I'm going to only touch 3 things in sustainability. First one is environmental aspect, second one is economical, and the third one would be political or your cultural dimension. So sustainability, briefly speaking, the definition is to be self-sustainable without jeopardizing the future needs of the people here in Le2i. While fulfilling in the Le2i sense, it means that it provides customer satisfaction and constant scientific breakthrough. That is in the near future and also in the present time. So on the first aspect of environmental, first one, to make Le2i more sustainable, the common practice in Le2i is, first one is to reduce carbon footprint. We notice that there are some practices here which includes fully utilizing equipment. Whenever there's a robot breakdown or there's an equipment breakdown, the functional part is still kept in some organized place so that it can be used for future use. And the second one is, of course, to share information as much as mostly on networks so that you can reduce any paper usage or any wastage of time and whatsoever. These are the environmental practices that can improve sustainability in an environmental sense. So the second one will be in economical aspect. We noticed that Le2i has some collaboration contracts for generating publications and patents that in turn generate incomes. So even the ties or the relationships that Le2i have is with certain leading industrial groups such as Renault, Areva, EDF, and ETC. So these ties and relationships can in turn generate some income that secures sustainability in an economic aspect. Le2i also works in a sense that they provide services to produce cost-effective solutions, such as modifying or creating solutions. The example of it would be software improvement, which we have heard in a previous presentation that we attended. That is, they provide better softwares or better methods to detect juvenile wood for industry use. So this is the sense of service that Le2i provides in economic aspect. So the third one will be in political and cultural dimension. It also relates to ties and relationships, but here it is in the sense that Le2i has a good tie relationship with its own government and also with universities of other countries sharing the same interests. The interest here means technological research or technological development. An example would be the university that we are studying now, that is UTP, which also focuses on technological research. These are the same interests that have ties with Le2i. And the fourth one will be culture. In a culture sense, it's a very good culture, in my personal opinion, here in Le2i, or rather in France in the general sense, that they spread or inform the society about knowledge and technological breakthrough. They share it, and then that in turn makes knowledge more sustainable. Because when everyone has the same amount of knowledge and everyone shares the breakthroughs, that is when knowledge can keep on improving and it makes it sustainable in the end. So to wrap up the first part of our presentation, that is, in theoretical and practical sense, it works hand in hand. When in university, we learn about theoretical knowledge, and here we try to make it practical by working on a sensor, for example, or working on a project here in Le2i. So this is, in turn, is a very good training platform for us to develop skills, such as problem-solving skills, communication skills, and sense of responsibility. So definitely Le2i is a very good training platform. So that ends the first part of our presentation, and now I'll pass to my colleague Lee for demonstrating his own project. Thank you.
Since my supervisor is not here yet, so maybe skip this part and go on to other projects first.
As you wish. Yeah. Or we can make a short break on the video right now and reassemble things later to follow the track you showed.
It's up to you guys. Which do you prefer?
Want to take a break?
So you just take a break now?
Yeah, just a couple of minutes eventually, just to give you question.
Okay, sure. By the way, so if you guys have any questions regarding the first part, that is centered on the background of Le2i and our working environment, you can ask now. But if you would like to focus more on questions for the practical and for the projects, then we can ask later.
Okay, yeah. Maybe we can give you feedback on the first part, on the overall, before forgetting it, because after that we will move to the technical part.
Alright.
I don't know if you filmed that.
We just filmed it and we will decide whether to...
As in television.
It depends on
we were discussing with colleagues. We really appreciate the way you presented it, and in my opinion, it's very interesting for us to have your feedback as newbies to the lab. I mean, not newbies in a pejorative way. I mean, the way you see the lab with new eyes. Not only, of course, on the technical or scientific part. We are used to have this kind of feedback, but the feedback of the organization of the lab, the way you see sustainability was very interesting to see how you feel that. It's really interesting to have this kind of feedback. We are not used to that. Honestly, we probably don't take the time to think a lot about that. So to have feedback from students, it's very original. And maybe some very few advices on not on the very first part on the introduction, but on the three other parts. Maybe put illustrations. Maybe one media, one picture can help, because you displayed a lot of slides with text, a lot of text. Your slides are clean, there's no problem about that, but this is just advice. For example, when you talk about open day, you've taken a lot of pictures with children coming, showing some demos. Put a picture of that. It will help the public in front of the slides to appreciate more what you're talking about. Just a few tips. Some of the colleagues.
I have two minor remarks. First of all, I appreciate the presentation. I consider it as a very good presentation of the lab. Congratulations for that. Two remarks. Well, since this is not a technical presentation, it's not a problem, but usually please add numbers to your slides. Because when a supervisor wants to tell you, can you go back please to slide number, there's no number. Okay? Since it's not a technical presentation, it's not important. But sometimes it's very comfortable to just note slide number 2, there's one typo or thing like that. Second thing, you use most of the time acronyms, and some of them are either unknown or not obvious for the broad audience. Okay, we all know here what is ROS, but maybe you could have just mentioned it's robotic operating system. When you have HSE, what does it mean? So remember that when you use acronym for the first time, even if you do not explicitly write it on your slide, just phrase it for someone who's not aware of that in the audience to just remember, okay, this means that. But otherwise, congratulations, I really liked your presentation.
Thank you.
Well, I don't have much to add. Congratulations. As said by Ralph, maybe less words and more images will be perfect. But your speeches have been very clear and exhaustive. And it was really interesting. So, congrats.